Kia ora koutou, Marky here in the mobile studio with the sea view. And this video, I know I've probably said this before, but this is probably one of the most important videos I have ever done. And I guess unlike ones where I've said this before, this applies to almost everyone. So listen up. It doesn't matter if you disagree, but please have a listen. And if you do agree or you think there's something of value in what I'm saying, please share this with everyone you know or everyone you care about, I guess. Okay, so I'm not going to do any more preamble. Very unlike me. You can tell how serious this is. I'm going to go straight into it. Now, you have probably noticed, unless you're living under a rock, that the world has got pretty crazy just lately. Couldn't really put a date on when it started to go crazy. It was always a bit crazy. That's the nature of planet Earth, the nature of humanity, certainly. But it started to go very crazy more recently, and it seems to be what's the word, accelerating. The increase in craziness seems to be accelerating, and I had different theories about what was going on. Some of those theories were more down to earth and mainstream. Some of those theories were bordering on the tinfoil hat. Okay, but I spoke to somebody who just shared an opinion, and it just made so much sense. I threw away my tinfoil hat, and I'm going to share with you what's going on, or what I think is going on, and it all makes perfect sense. Okay, so what's going on in the world? Horrible things and threats of horrible things. So I'm just going to make myself a little more comfortable, as I've just shot another video, so my arm, which I'm using to hold up the camera, is a little fatigued. You can still see the clouds, which look rather cool. So, among other things, and there's some things that I find so upsetting that I can't even think about. So the time of recording this, the big news is all the riots in the UK, and that's just I can't watch news items about it. I can't discuss it. It's just really upsetting me. But it's not just that. It's endemic of, is that the right word? No, it's not the right word, is it? It's indicative of a whole bunch of, typical, let's say, not indicative, of a whole bunch of things that are going on in the world right now. And there is, I think, a common denominator. Okay. And the common denominator is basically people are becoming more polarized. And why are they becoming more polarized? Now, this is where I had all my tinfoil hat theories. And I'm not saying I've thrown them out, because some of them coexist with my new theory. As those of you that know me will know that I hold theories lightly. I hold beliefs lightly. I always keep an open mind. Whatever I believe about anything is always a working hypothesis. And I'm always happy to revise it with, if I get more data. So why are people getting more divided, and what does this look like? So have you noticed that these days nobody, and particularly in social media, this is where it's at its strongest, this is where you see it, nobody seems to be moderate or centrists, or have maybe some slightly right-wing theories and opinions about one thing, and maybe some slightly left-wing theories about another. Everybody is either far right, or they're a lefty. There's loads of words. There's more words for the left. So it's snowflake, a social justice warrior. What are the other ones? They used to be bleeding heart liberals, a very old one. So that doesn't apply so much, but you know what I mean. So, or Marxist, communist, Marxist, anarchist. Okay, now there are communist, Marxists, anarchists, and there are people on the far right. Okay, and but how many people have you met that are Marxist, communists, anarchists? I'm putting a slash between those words, by the way. And how many people have you met that are white supremacist, neo-Nazi, fascist, far right people? Probably neither. Okay, so you got people on the left and on the right, but most people are moderate. Most people are, you know, not on the far right and they're not on the far left. Okay. But these days, the only language that you see, particularly on, you know, in news items and memes and online and stuff like that, relates to these extremes. Okay. And what will happen is the way social media works, and this is what it's all about social media and the internet. The way social media works is it builds an echo chamber around you. Okay. So if it believes that you are left in your politics, it will show you stuff about how bad the right are. It will show you, you know, they're all neo-Nazis, goose stepping. And if you're on the right, then you're going to hear stories about the left. You know, they're going to make it illegal to be male or female now. You know, you have to be something else. You know, and they'll exaggerate what's going on among people who are more on the left. That wasn't a very good example, but you get my point. Okay, so and then you will just be bombarded with these messages online. Whenever you go online, some of them will be subtle, some of them will be less subtle, and this is happening to everyone. So me, who's slightly on the left, actually I'm more of a centrist, really. I'm going to go on a tangent here. I didn't do the preamble, but I will do tangents. So people think I'm a lefty, and I supported Jeremy Corbyn when he was, so I'm talking about UK politics now, when he was leader of the Labour Party, and I actually left the Labour Party when he left. I think Jeremy Corbyn is one of the few politicians that cares about people and has principles. There are so many people in politics that are just out for their own careers. People like Trump. People think that Trump stands for something. Trump does not stand for anything, apart from Trump. Okay, he makes people think that he stands for things because of the way that he talks, but it's so easy to see through that. I'm not keen on Keir Starmer. I think it's a shame that he's got the name Keir, obviously from Keir Hardie. I don't think he's a socialist. I'm not necessarily a socialist, but I think there should be socialists around. Okay. Now, what I mean by socialist, okay, because people, again, this is a word that's been misused by the media. A socialist does not mean a communist, anarchist, Marxist. You know, there are Marxist influences there, but broadly speaking, you know, moderate socialists, such as, you know, traditionally the British Labour Party, are about making sure that the working classes are taken care of, and everybody's taken care of. Okay, whereas more and they a lot more respect for, generally speaking, things like a lot more respect for minorities and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's sort of socialism. We're not talking about, you know, the totalitarian, you know, anything like the totalitarian regimes of the former USSR. Nothing like that. I mean actually communism does not work. It's failed wherever. The thing about communism is it's a lovely, fluffy, kind, generous, utopian ideal, but in order to bring it in, you have to have everybody on board. And generally speaking, when people have tried to introduce communism, they haven't been able to get everybody on board unless they've been, you know, horribly oppressive, and therefore they've gone completely against all the ideals that they stood for in the first place. But socialism isn't like that. Socialism, you know, like I say, in a centre left or moderate left party like the British Labour Party traditionally was, that, you know, they just stand for, you know, they want to spend more money, they want a higher role of government, whereas the right wing, and I'm not talking about the far right, I'm talking about like the Conservative Party or the Republican Party back in the good days. They would just be more for the individuals kind of taking care of themselves, and government not interfering too much in things that government doesn't have to interfere in, and minimizing taxation. Now, arguably, you know, they often favor the rich, which I don't like, but that's basically your moderate left and right, and how it's been for a long time. And I'm just kind of going back to my tangent, which is where my politics lie. I'm actually a centrist. but I think there has been a shift to the right. Not to the far right, although that has happened as well, but a shift to the right in terms of all the, like in the UK, all the political parties are what they call neoliberal. So they're very influenced by business, and the Labour Party is no longer socialist. The Labour Party is just, to me, it's just an alternative conservative party. And Tories in red coats. So it's the opposite in America. In the UK, Conservatives are blue and Labour are red, and Republicans are, oh, I'm getting confused now, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. It's the opposite way around. Incidentally, a tangent off a tangent, a guy, a really nice guy that I used to chat to quite often, who was a raving conservative, you know, involved in the party and everything. Even though he was very pro-conservative, he always used to laugh about the fact that the conservative blue colour was number 666 in the coded number 666 in the catalogue. So that was in the back in the days of Thatcher. So I'm centrist, but I kind of support, you know, I've moved more to supporting the left because everything's shifted to the right. The centrists are more right. And I don't necessarily want Labour always to be in government. I think there should be a moderate socialist left party, and there should be a moderate conservative right party. And actually, the interplay between those two is the healthiest for everybody. And this is where psychology comes into play. Okay, so you get they balance one another out. And this is actually something that has been identified. There's a personality model called the 5-factor model, which I've done videos on. And you can actually ascertain with reasonable degree of accuracy from this, from the questionnaire, from using the questionnaire based on the model, what politics people have. So there are obviously the 5-factor model, clue is in the name, it's got 5 factors, but the first 2 factors, one is openness and the second one is conscientiousness. Okay, so openness means kind of creativity and intellectual interest, and conscientiousness doesn't mean what we generally think of as conscientiousness. It means industriousness and organization. So what they've found is that Nazis are really high in conscientiousness and really low in openness. So therefore they can't deal with anything that's not black and white. So you have racial purity, you know, because we can't have things mixing. You know, we don't want anybody having any blood from a different race. We want pure white blood, or, you know, it could be any blood really, because it's not necessarily limited to white people. And then the other way around, you've got people that are very high in openness but low in conscientiousness. They're kind of not hipsters. They're probably not very effectual, not very organised. They're probably kind of the kind of person that hangs around dope smoking, but is very live and let live, very liberal, very egalitarian. Also, they're the people that are the most unhappy, actually, interestingly. But you can tell from the so there's these 2 qualities. Okay, so rather than saying left and right, openness to experience and conscientiousness, there's these 2 qualities, and the 2 are you can have both together, but often people swing more towards one than another, and having that balance makes for a stable society. Okay, so basically, if you've got people that are too open, you know, they're very left, they're maybe quite radical, they want to, you know, to make massive swinging changes to society. And then you've got the conservatives. Now, the name conservative means keep it as it is, don't change anything. Okay, so those people, they stand for what they often call traditional values. Okay, so often it's about going back to something, or it's about holding on to something. Now, if you had just people who were conservative, just people who were conscientious but not open to experience, then society would become very rigid, very stale. There wouldn't be much innovation. And if you had just people who were, you know, innovative and radical and wanted to change everything, then there would be no stability. Everything would be too fluid. It would overwhelm. People don't like change. You know, change has to come in gradually. And it's the counterplay between those two things, which are represented, I would say, by the Conservatives and, so in the UK, by the Conservatives and by the Labour Party, and in the USA, traditionally by Republicans and Democrats. And occasionally both of those parties will swing more to the right, or they'll become more extreme. I mean, I think the Conservative Party in the UK have done some pretty criminal things in terms of disability allowances. They've basically got blood on their hands. They've killed a lot of people off through making it impossible for people that genuinely need disability benefits to get them. But aside from that, and historically, and very overgeneralizing, they're both moderate. One's more to the left and one's more to the right. So that's the way I think it works. Now, what is happening with social media is putting people into these echo chambers and feeding people propaganda, you know, gaslighting people that there are no moderates anymore, that everyone's an extreme. And that, you know, anybody that's on the left wants to change everything, wants to let go of family values, you know, wants to destroy the very fabric of society, and that somebody on the right is a Nazi. No, you know, most people are somewhere in the middle. And people, you know, historically, people that have been in, you know, on the left and the right have been able to be friends. You know, it's not been a divisive issue, you know, and there's been great examples of, you know, like Michael Portillo and Diane Abbott, you know, were a TV partnership for a long time. You know, she's from the left, and she is a genuine socialist, and he's, you know, he's a right-wing conservative, not a far right-wing conservative, but a right-wing conservative. And then you've got Ben Elton, you know, known for stand-up that was, you know, very left-wing, very political left-wing comedy, working with what's his name? So this is what happens when you start to get into your 50s, you lose words. Andrew Lloyd Webber, who's a, you know, a big, you know, like a Tory grandee, you know, funds the Tory party and stuff like that, and they collaborate, you know. This is the norm. Don't listen to this propaganda that they're trying to sell to you. Now, why is this happening? Okay, now I used to think, oh, it's an agenda, somebody, you know, somebody's doing this, and I'm still haven't ruled that out. I still have some, you know, I suppose I might have taken my tinfoil hat off, but I haven't thrown it away just in case I need it. But on the surface level, it's actually very simple, and it's very prosaic. Is you know, one of the biggest new industries, if you like, is data and advertising and that kind of thing. So everything that we do online, especially all the stuff that we get for free, you know, like Facebook and you know, all these things, they're interested in our data. You know, we think that we're getting these things for free. We're not getting them for free. They're using our data. We are like little you know, cows being milked. They milk us for our data and provide us with entertainment to keep us sweet. Okay, and so everything in the business world now, in commerce, is geared towards likes, is geared towards what's popular. Okay, because that's the whole way that it works. So if I do the last video that I did, I was talking about how I did some true crime videos, and they were much more popular than a lot of the other videos that I do. But I don't want to just do true crime videos. But that kind of gets rewarded. The other thing that gets rewarded, or the main thing that gets rewarded, is what's the word? Conflict. Okay, so if something online is contentious and controversial, it will get more views and more clicks and more likes than something that's, you know, that's harmonious but maybe a bit boring. So wherever conflict occurs, it gains more attention and more reward. Now, if I was a bit more techie, I could kind of go into the mechanics of it. I know enough to know that it's happening, but I couldn't probably give you a good explanation of how all that works on a, you know, a data and communication level. But basically all the attention and the energy and the reward and the money goes towards what grabs the attention the most. And one of the things that grabs the attention the most is conflict. Okay, we don't, you know, gossip about boring things. We gossip about, you know, the shocking things. Somebody's done something terrible. So it's interesting, Chris Watts, you know, the video that I did last, you know, a guy that killed all his family, I posted about that, you know, thousands of likes, thousands of views, not likes, views. If I talk about, as I do often, a lot of things around psychology, which will make people's lives much more harmonious and easy and happy, very few views. So this is why we're being polarized. It's not, or it may be, you know, maybe that, you know, there are powers that be that have got a hidden agenda and that this is part of it. And it may not be. But on, you know, even if both are occurring, I think what is definitely occurring is all the algorithms and everything to do with the way that the internet is set up is drawing attention to conflict and polarizing people. It's simple as that. Simple as that. Although there's more to it. There are more things, and I'm going to go briefly into some of the other things. But we are being polarized not by anybody's choice, not by anybody's will, but by default. Just because, you know, that's the way the system works. And the system works not because it's trying to create World War III and riots in the UK and all kinds of division. Not because it wants that, but because it's just after the money, and that's a byproduct. So why I think this video is so important is we need to realize this, and we need to not buy into it. Okay, we need not to buy into it. Don't buy into this extreme polarity. Don't identify, you know, don't see the people that disagree with you politically as these terrible, evil people, you know, whatever side it might be, because that's not the case. Okay, some, like I say, some people, and also, you know, the people who are on the extremes, people that are white supremacists, or they are, you know, anarchists. Anarchism isn't a bad thing in itself. But there are, again, like communism, in order to bring it in, it often, you know, requires this revolutionary, aggressive, oppressive measures, and they're bad, you know. So that's why, you know, Soviet communism was really grim. I don't think there is any communism in the world at the moment. I don't think there's ever been real communism. Because, you know, it gets corrupted and it turns into dynasties. It turns into, you know, people clinging on to control. And it comes into, you know, it goes against the very essence of what it stands for, so that the people in charge have masses of power and wealth, and the rest of the people are poor. But we've kind of gone into that, I guess, so I don't need to say any more about that. So please tell everybody this, you know, we need to opt out of this way of seeing things as polarity. Almost everything in life actually is about the middle place, is usually the happy place. Okay, and the further you get out onto the left or the right, the more extreme that gets, the more that becomes a problem. A little, you know, moderate left and moderate right, absolutely fine, and the two go together. You know, they're kind of antagonistic and opposite, but they're also complementary, like day and night. You need both. Okay, so what else is going on? Okay, so I'm just going to briefly touch on this, because I think it is a factor. And this is more controversial. I don't know why. I really don't know why, because there's plenty of evidence to suggest this. But I'm going to touch on this briefly. It might be something that maybe I'll return to. Is COVID is far worse than people imagine in terms of its long-term effects. Okay. And I... based on evidence, not based on belief, but it has physical and mental effects that often last a lifetime. And we're not necessarily even talking about long COVID here. Long COVID, you know, is a terrible thing, is a very real thing. But a lot of people that have had COVID, especially if they've had it 1 or 2 times or more, as many people have, it stays in the body and it stays in the brain. And I think a lot of people who've had COVID are a lot less rational and a lot more crazy, really. So if you've noticed more crazy behavior, I think a lot of it is to do with that as well. Yeah, it's like a bear's head in that cloud, doesn't it, at the top, that black bit. It's like a big bungle bear. So people, I don't think, are as rational. They're more emotional and emotive and reactionary in their behavior. People are more dangerous, more crazy. I think people are driving in a more dangerous way. People are committing more crime because they are less less risk averse. Lots of things there. I think people aren't quite what they were. I'll leave it at that. But I'm not as being as off the wall as that might sound. You know, the research that says all this stuff is out there, and it's not, you know, it's not conspiracy theory. It's there. So dig a bit deeper into COVID stuff, because the again, commerce, which is driving everything, is all about, oh, you know, forget about it, get back to work, you know, make sure you go to the cinema and the restaurants, and, you know, keep the oils of industry rolling, but actually at the cost of people having, you know, sometimes subtle, sometimes less subtle, long-term mental and physical effects. And then just to touch briefly on vaccinations, there's, you know, that's been part of the problem as well. Again, I don't know how much this has kind of affected people on a psychological or a cognitive mental level, but lots of deaths through that, and that's through vaccinations, and that's you know, that's evidence. There's evidence for this. You know, it's not fringe. But I guess that's straying into a different subject. And lots of deaths. The whole world has experienced, you know, massive excess of deaths through things like heart disease and stroke and stuff like that, and other things. It's talked about. The evidence is all there. But nobody talks about that. You know, we're all, you know, industry says you must consume and you must engage, and anybody that doesn't do that is antisocial and an enemy to society. It's very 1984. So what's the answer? So the answer is share this video, have discussions with people, don't buy into what they tell you, don't buy into the echo chamber of the internet that tells you that anybody that thinks differently to you is extreme. And the second thing is learn critical thinking. Okay, so there are 2 kinds of thinking. There's emotional thinking and there's critical thinking. Okay, now emotional thinking is okay, you know, but we need to know when we're thinking emotionally. We need to know when we're not being rational. And then critical thinking is much more, so it's about logic. It's about being much more rational, being much more clean and clear. Okay. And 2 things that you should always ask yourself whenever anyone shares a piece of information or a view or an opinion is, first of all, is the evidence upon which it's claimed to be based, is that evidence correct? And there's so much false information out there now. The great thing about the amazing internet, where we can get, you know, a whole world of information at our fingertips, and never in history have we had more disinformation and nonsense circulating. You know, it's like the Flat Earth Society. That pretty much died out just before the internet was created. And now Flat Earth is like a massive thing. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of nonsense online, and people are buying into that as if it's correct. So first of all, you know, so somebody raises a point, what is the evidence that it's based on? And then what is their rationale? So somebody might argue that, I'm going to think of I'm never very good at thinking of examples, but so somebody might argue that could be anything. Could be we should be cutting down on carbon emissions. Okay, so first of all, why do they think that? And people would say, well, because global warming, more CO2 in the atmosphere. Well, is that true? I mean, I believe that's true, but lots of people don't believe that, or lots of people believe that it's happening anyway. And then the second argument would be, well, we want to cut down on the carbon emissions because it's the carbon emissions that are causing this and making it worse. So sorry, I'm wobbling the camera now. That's because of my cognitive exertion in trying to find an example. So, and some people would argue that, yeah, okay, I agree. The evidence is correct that yes, there is climate change. Okay, all those scientific facts are true. But what about the rationale? The rationale that it's being caused by carbon emissions, that may not be true. It may be caused by natural phenomena, in which case there's a kind of an inevitable doom, and maybe it doesn't matter that much if we don't drop our carbon emissions. Trying to drop our carbon emissions might be like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, so it's not worth doing. Now that's the rationale. Now, is that rationale correct? So you have to look at both things: the evidence, the science, the data that an assumption is based on, and loads of times at the moment it's based on falsehood. And then the rationale. So somebody could have correct data, but come up with a wrong argument, an argument that doesn't actually make. When you scrutinize it, when you poke it and prod it, it doesn't make sense. Okay. Now, don't get me hooked into an argument on climate change, because it's not something that I'm particularly clued up on, as you can probably tell. So you might think that climate change is being caused by human behavior and carbon emissions. You might think that it's happening anyway, and that that there are people manipulating this information to try and drive their own agenda. Now, I don't care. It's not something that I put a lot of thought and energy into. I tend to be of the opinion that regardless, it's a good idea to cut our carbon emissions, and we should do that. But if you have a different opinion, I'm not going to get cross. I'm going to say, oh, fair enough, that's interesting, and I'll listen to what you've got to say. But I'm not going to lose sleep over it or get into a heated argument with you, especially a heated argument, because that will increase the global warming. But that's just an illustration. Okay, so one of the things that we can do in this era of disinformation and gaslighting and propaganda, which is not being done by evil minds, but it's being done by innocent algorithms, is we can be a bit more discerning about what we believe and what we buy into. And the second thing is, just don't go into polarity. Most things are somewhere in the middle. Okay, and don't buy into these attempts to polarize us, so that we can't be friends with somebody because they vote for a different party. And this will set you free. The truth shall set you free. Okay, once you know this, you can't. If you believe it, you have every right not to. You might disagree with me, or you might have another argument. But once you know this, then you have the potential to be free of the matrix, and to help other people get free of the matrix. And the more we talk to each other properly, respectfully, kindly, and get away from this, reactionary approach, then the better it will be for the world, and the less likely we're going to have World War III and all the other crazy things that are happening, riots and racism and all these crazy things. Okay, so I hope you found that interesting. Well, really, I hope you found that enlightening, and I hope you found that life-changing, and I hope that you'll share this with people. I really appreciate it if you just share this video with people that you know, people that you care about. I have said enough. It is getting dark, and getting dark politically, and in terms of the state of the world, and getting dark at the end of the day as well. So I will say farewell. The word I always end on these videos is a Maori word, rangi Marie, and that means peace. So thank you for listening, and rangi Marie.